Hello and welcome to the PCT podcast. In our inaugural podcast, we speak to Rory Delap, current first team coach at Stoke City. Rory speaks to us about his playing career and his transition into coaching. If you find that you like our content, head over to our YouTube channel and find episodes on our PCT football coaching channel. All episodes will be uploaded onto iTunes and Spotify on a monthly basis, with video footage released every week. We hope you enjoy listening to our podcasts just as much as we enjoyed recording them. Stay safe. Hi, Rory. Firstly, thank you for taking the time to speak to us here at PCT Coaching. It's an absolute honour to have you join us. How are you and the family during this uncertainty at the minute?
Oh, good, mate. Yeah, I think everyone's in the dark really about what's really going on and what effect it's going to have. But you've got to do what you've been told to do and get on with it. And it's not going to be easy. Some people will have it tougher than others, but it's another part. I don't think there's anybody. I was speaking to someone the other day who lived through World War II.
Right. Okay.
And she said that it's similar-ish, but they could go and visit relatives and give each other a cuddle. And, you saw a friend in the street, you give them a cuddle and stuff. But says, it's the no contact and not seeing people. That's the toughest part. And we've never been through it. We've never not had to see, family members. You might go a month or two without seeing them, but there's always the option to do it. But I think everyone's just getting their heads down and getting through it as best they can.
That's it, yeah. I mean, with what's going on, it's a great time really to come out of the fast lane and certainly sort of upskill and gain further knowledge. But for yourself, how are you keeping busy?
Yeah, well, I'm sort of I started my pro license in January, so it was interesting what was going to happen there, but it's been really good. We've broken off into smaller groups, and doing a lot of webinars, doing a lot of calls like this, and we're putting presentations together in terms of, we've been given tasks to do and presented them in the smaller groups. Then you'll go on and present to 3 or 4 others and see theirs, and obviously seeing and speaking to people you probably wouldn't be able to because no one's got anywhere to go, mate. So people tend to say yes because it takes up an hour or two of the day, and so I've been keeping busy that way myself. But then obviously with work as well, trying to keep in touch with the lads and keep an eye on them without being on top of them. It looks like this is going to be their time off, so we're aware they need to spend it and spend it away. And sometimes it's good to get away from the environment and, as you say, reflect on what's gone on. But no, they've been busy doing conditioning work. We keep an eye on them. They've had a hit session this morning.
All right, okay.
As a group, so nearly all of them were. It's optional at the minute because it's their time off. But there was only 3 or 4 missed out this morning, and just keeping an eye. And then as a staff, just reviewing what's gone well, what we could do better. We're looking at players through Y Scout and such, but identifying targets really about what we need when the next season starts, but making sure that we stay in the league that we're in this season.
Yeah, I mean, we'll touch on sort of that later if it's okay, the sort of coaching and how you're keeping busy. But we just wanted to just go through sort of your career to date, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So a former schoolboy javelin champion. Was there a decision to be made at that age then between athletics and football?
Yeah, I was a decent athlete. I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but I was a decent 800-meter runner and decent at long jump. But javelin, without training for it or doing any specifics, I was decent at it. I was getting records from the age groups and stuff. So I had a couple of. I got in the county and managed to win the county championships. And I had a fella come to me after that and ask what I was doing, and I basically said I was playing football. And he said, "Well, you've got a real talent. Would it be something you'd look at?" And to be honest, I told him no, because football was the thing I wanted to do really. And it was interesting because I'd just been released from Carlisle, so
right.
It it was a bit of a kick in the teeth. I think I was sort of 14, 15 at the time.
Okay.
So there was no academy back then, but it was School of Excellence. So we used to go, I think it was about once every 2 weeks to a training session. But that wouldn't be very consistent either. You know, you'd turn up and no one would be there, the doors would be locked, and they just end up having a kick about in the car park, 3 or 4 that turned up that didn't get the message or whatever, because we didn't have text messaging, right? If you didn't answer the home phone, you didn't get the message. So a little bit different now, but it probably, you know, I'm not saying I would have made it as a javelin thrower, but certainly had a bit of talent in throwing things.
Fair enough. It's you mentioned there you were released from Carlisle, but later obviously went on to make your debut in '92. Just talk to us a little bit about your journey and at what age you were re-signed.
Well, I was there from I think it started at 12 or 13, the School of Excellence. As I say, it was maybe once or twice a month back then, and then released. I think it was 14 or 15, but I wasn't taken back in until I was playing for the under-16s Sunday League. Okay. And the manager at the time, Dave Wilkes, who became the youth team manager, he was at a game and I happened to have a good game and invited me down. Did all right, and I sort of finished school. This was during my GCSEs. Okay. I was going through that, but my focus really was on how I was going to get into a football club rather than my GCSEs, unfortunately. And at that time, they didn't mix very well. It was one or the other. You know, you were told by coaches in known circumstances that if you miss the game for an exam, you know, that's maybe your chance gone. So I did end up missing a couple of my GCSEs to go and play in trial games and things. But that was where I was going to be. If I didn't get a club, then I'd have cracked on with trials and gone that route and probably got, you know, a job at 15, 16. Went into Carlisle that pre-season, the start of the apprentice year, and I still hadn't been offered a contract. But I think it was after about 3 days they decided to offer me the scholarship, and went from there and didn't have a great first couple of months, to be honest. So felt a little bit behind the others physically. You know, I think I was about 5'8", 5'9", and about 60 kilos. So I was getting bumped around everywhere. You know, in those days, the first team used to drop down and play in the youth team. Right. Okay. But if they hadn't played a game or they'll come back from injury, you could play a couple of first team players in the youth team. So, you know, you're playing your Stockports and your Marines and Tranmeres and this, you know, first team players that had played 300-400 games, dropping down to get fit or regain match fitness, and you're getting kicked all over the pitch, really. So, but then after Christmas, kind of clicked a little bit and managed to push on and get a couple of reserve games, and eventually got in the last couple of squads of the season and made my debut in the last game of the season in my first year apprentice. So was chuffed. Yeah, it sounds like a real sort of baptism of fire of being unleashed with sort of senior pros as such. And was that would you say a massive learning curve of where you needed to get to? It was, yeah, because we had you learn very quickly that they were dropping down, and it was a league, and the club wanted to finish as high as they could in the league. So there was a little bit of pressure on results, which, you know, it's probably gone away from, rightly so at times now. But I think at that age, you need to learn how to win games. And players that were dropping down, I remember a fella called John Holliday, was a local, came through, played a lot of first team games, but he was having real problems with his groins. And he probably played 5 or 6 youth team games with us. And I think looking at him, it was like, right, he was 6'4", you know, he was a big boy, physical, good player, but the way he spoke to you, and you know, it was brutal, but you thought, yeah, he might be playing in the youth team, but he wants to win the game. And there was a lot of a massive learning curve, and very quickly as well. you know, because you're playing with him, but against senior players as well, who again wanted to win the games, and that rubbed off on all us. And you know, it was taken away a couple of years later that first team players could do that. But I thought it was a great learning tool to watch them, see them, and play with them, play against them week in, week out.
Fantastic. I mean, just slightly moving forward, 97, and you got promotion to League Two and won the Auto Windscreen Shield as it was back then.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your journey to that and how that season was.
Yeah, well, the club was nearly out of business the summer I joined as an apprentice, and then a year later, Michael Knighton came in, who just missed out on taking over Man United a couple of months before. So he came out and he saved the club. You know, it was a roller coaster time with him in charge, but I think he saved the club. But the thing was that there was a couple of young lads got close to the first team at the end of that first year. But then the little bit of money that came in, he got Mick Wadsworth in, who was a you know, brilliant coach, massive part of again my learning curve as a player. But came in and he upped the quality, which unfortunately meant the young lads kind of got knocked back for a couple of years. But they got promotion and got to the Auto Windscreen Shield final 2 years previously in '95, and I was in and around the squad and played the odd game, got you know, a handful of appearances, but wasn't really a part of the first team squad, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, so the year that year after he left and went to Norwich, and then the financial situation was, the club was in a little bit of trouble, so which helped the young lads at the time. Yeah. We actually played a couple of games where I think the starting 11 were all brought up in Cumbria, born and bred. So you know, it was a great time for the club, and a lot of those went on to play Premier League football as well. So I think that was a massive part of it as well. But we were at 18, 19 years of age, so we'd had a decent little bit of experience. We'd been in around successful squad, some very, very good players for the league we were in, playing really good football, and I think we got the advantage from that by so many of us coming through. And as you say, we had that year in '97, which is one of my, you know, my best memories of football, really, that at that age, sort of 2021, that we managed to get promoted and win the Auto Windscreen at Wembley, which was a fantastic day. So you know, you look back and you look at that learning curve from getting in, dropping out. You talk about coaching and how players come through, and you know, it's success, then a knockback success, knockback, and but that molds you as a person and builds that resilience to things that you're going to face in your career.
Just slightly moving away, you're saying there a lot went on to have really good careers, you know, play Premier League football. Would you say that circumstance helped massively there, rather than, I'd say, talent and just having an opportunity to go and play, which isn't necessarily there in the higher ends?
Yeah, I think it was probably a little bit of a freaky situation, really, at Carlisle, because it was just about timing as well. You know, listen, you've got some massive clubs, but they're all an hour or so away from Carlisle. You know, you've got Newcastle, Sunderland, Middlesbrough one side, then you've got Glasgow, you've got Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen, Motherwell, teams like that were taking players from our area. Then you go south, sort of Burnley, Preston, were bigger clubs than Carlisle at the time. And then, you know, not too much further, your Manchester clubs. So they were all sniffing round. But I think because of the distance, we managed to keep a group of probably 8 or 9 young lads that did have, you know, ability and talent, but there was a real work ethic about us. You know, that was drilled into us by our coach at the time, Dave Wilkes, and I think the area as well, you know, similar to Stoke, really, that expect you to work hard first and foremost. Anything that comes with that's probably a little bit of a bonus in terms of, ability and talent. But the one thing you are expected to do is work your nuts off every day and make sure you're the right type of character. But yeah, if the money had been pumped in, it might have gone from strength to strength for the football club, but we might not have got our chance. But we managed to take advantage of the situation, and sort of glad it worked out that way.
Yeah, but sort of the following season, a move to Derby came around under Jim Smith. How did that come about? Was that just due to the success and, as you say, the bigger clubs sniffing?
Yeah, well, there was a hell of a lot of clubs started to come to our games. We had, there was not including myself. We had Matt Jansen, Scott Dobie, Lee Peacock, that all went on to play a good number of Premier League games. Matt Jansen was a real sort of star. He's a couple of years younger than us. He'd come into the team, done really well. And he was getting offers from everywhere. Alex Ferguson rang him up, and he ended up going probably mad now when you think of it, that we were League One as it is now. Yeah. But the club was sending us on trial to places. So Matt went 3 or 4 clubs on trial for a week. And Derby was one of those. Myself and Matt both went to Derby on trial for a week over. We played for Carlisle Boxing Day, and then we didn't have a game for a week, so we went and trained with Derby for that week, played a reserve game. And in all honesty, I thought I was keeping him company. Right. And anyway, went back, played another 4 or 5 games for Carlisle, didn't think anything else of it. And then was called into the chairman's office one day and told that they'd accepted a bid from Derby, and went down, spoke to Jim Smith, and never went back.
I can say it's certainly a turn of events from what you mentioned there, from going from potentially thinking you were keeping someone company, but a move to a big club at the time under Jim Smith.
Yeah,
enjoy your time there.
Sorry,
did you enjoy your time at Derby?
I loved it. Yeah. As I say, I'd gone from a League One club that was struggling in that league at the time, to a Premier League club. And, I'll be honest, I didn't even ask about the financial situation. The only question I asked him was, am I going to be a squad player or a start in the start? And he said, well, that's up to you. He says, you'll get your chance this season. He says, we've got 14 games left. You'll get your chance. It's up to you to take it. And he stuck to his word, and thankfully I managed to take the chance, and I played 12 of the 14 games and to the end of that season. And again, up and down, because the pace was frightening and the quality was frightening at the time. Sort of 2 years previously, the real influx of the top foreign talent had started coming into the Premier League, and we had 4 or 5 at Derby that were top notch, that would sign from AC Milan and the such. So, it was another level, and I learned so much in that 3 months at the end of that season around nutrition, looking after yourself. We had no facilities at Carlisle, and I'm not using it as an excuse, but we were in the morning, 10 minutes before we went out to train. We go out to train, back in, tea and toast, go in, and we had a little multi-gym weights thing, the thing it's got every exercise on, and there was 20 of us crammed around that trying to get some kind of gym session. Yeah. But we went to having a dedicated fitness coach, which I'd never heard of, a nutritionalist. But even just watching what the Iranios, the Stimaks, Bayanos, those players were eating at lunchtime in the canteen at Derby was a huge learning curve for me as well.
You must have enjoyed it and got some experience from your time at Derby, as you moved to Southampton in 2001 for what was a record signing from the club. obviously you were given your chance at Derby. Did you go with a little bit of pressure with the sort of transfer tag, or?
No, again, I didn't want to leave. You know, I got a phone call saying they'd accepted a bid, and it took me by surprise a little bit. So I asked to speak to the manager and went to speak to him, and he said, listen, the financial situation the club have got themselves in with, you know, getting some of the foreign superstars, as you call them, in and paying them, you know, big money. He said the club's in trouble. Right. The chairman was Lionel Pickering at the time, who was unbelievable, but his health was deteriorating, so that the money sort of started to not disappear, but was starting to be held back, and rightly so. The family were looking after each other, and so I didn't want to go at all. And sort of the manager said, "Look, there's no way around it. We're going to have to sell." There was myself, Seth Johnson, Malcolm Christie, Chris Riggett, all young lads at the time. You know, and we were starting to build a good side, but he said, we're going to have to sell you all. So, you know, but I went and spoke to Southampton and what they were offering as, you know, where they wanted to be and what they wanted to get to. Stuart Gray and Mick Wadsworth, who had worked with the Carlisle, were there. You know, and they kind of sold the place. I went down, obviously, unbelievable place down in Southampton, and the facilities they had were again a notch up on where Derby were at the time. So, decided to make the move. You know, and again, as you say, whether it was the pressure of the fee or not, I don't know. I never really thought about it, but I think just people were expecting me to go down there and be like a match winner, I think, which, you know, I think everyone that knows I'm, you know, it's probably not one of my strengths. I'd managed to score a few goals and stuff at Derby, but it was more for the fact that I was being thrown up front or that late on in games, and because of injuries and stuff, I was starting games up front and I was managed to score goals. So, you know, it wasn't that I wasn't playing well, but I was getting probably a little bit of luck from us having an injury crisis up front at the time.
Okay.
And I went in there, and I'd been playing wing back for Derby, wing back midfielder up front really, for the last 2 seasons, and then went in and they asked me to play right back as Jason Dodd was injured at the time, and went in and, you know, although there's not a massive difference between wing back and right back, I was never really at that stage a defender. Yeah. You know, and my form again, you know, wasn't great. Neither was the teams. I don't think we'd won one of the first 8 games. And anyway, Stuart Gray got the sack. Gordon Strachan came in. You know, and I was out the team for a few games, but then, you know, he called me in and says, "Listen, we're playing 4-4-2. Where would you see your strongest position in that formation?" And I said, "Well, midfield." And he put me in midfield, and, you know, I managed to have 3.5, 4 really good years there, playing under Gordon. But unfortunately, that went, you know, downhill as well towards the end of his tenure.
You mentioned, obviously, your chances up front, obviously with Derby. But one of the questions that sort of I got was, I think it's quite renowned, the overhead kick in 2004. As you mentioned, you're not known for your goal scoring. Where did that worldie come from?
Yeah, well, I've not scored for ages. You know, I was far from knocking double figures in every season, but no. What caught me by surprise is that I still don't know where the goal sort of came from. But I looked around and I thought, well, I may as well go further forward. But I managed to see Klaus Lundegvarm was in the box with me, who's centre half, who I think he'd only scored 1 goal in his career. I think that took me by surprise, and I thought, well, if he's up, I'm staying up. And he managed to get the flick on, and the ball came over, and it's one of those moments, isn't it, that you have a goal, you think nothing to lose, and managed to caught it as sweetly as he could and went in. And it was one of those. It's great to look back on, but the most important thing at that time was that it scored and we won the game. So it's more now looking back at it. It's nice to have scored a goal like that.
Favourite goal you scored?
I scored a goal against Chelsea for Derby, and it was probably because it was a bit more finesse from about 25, 30 yards, and managed to pull one down and curl it round De Hoy. It was a top keeper at the time, but I didn't score too many finesse goals.
Yeah.
Most were power or headers, so I would say that's probably my favourite goal.
Fantastic. Not shortly after that, in 2005, moved to Sunderland, signed by Mick McCarthy, replaced not too long after by Roy Keane, and then a loan move came about to Stoke. So you made your debut in a 4-0 win against Leeds. Were you a little bit excited about what was to come after that first game?
Yeah, again, I didn't want to leave Southampton, but the chairman made it clear that there was 8 or 9 of us that had to leave, really, again financially, but it wasn't a case of wanting to leave. I love my time down there, but the last year down there was a real tough year football wise. So decided, got the call from Mick McCarthy, who had worked with the Ireland. Went up there, and the only question I asked the chairman and him were, is he in danger, because the team were in a real bad position at the time. But it was more for a family move, really, for myself, moving back up north.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I was told by the chairman that if we lost every game to the end of the season, Mick would be the man in charge. And the only reason I really went to Sunderland was for Mick.
Right.
Because I was confident that the club was more or less relegated at the time, but I thought it'd be a good move family-wise, personally, but would have a real good squad and chance of going up the season after. And he was sacked after 2 games, so that didn't go well. But then Roy came in and he made his intention clear that I wasn't part of his plans, which I had no problem with. But as soon as I heard Stoke were interested, I knew Danny Higginbotham well, that was already at the club. Spoke to him. He had nothing but good to say about the club and what the manager and the club were trying to do. And came down, watched the game against Preston, I think it was. Spoke to the manager after it, and he sort of sold what was going to happen, really. And looking at where the club was, they were, to be honest, I think Sunderland and Stoke were at a point apart at the time, sort of 17th, 18th or something in the league. So kind of what he was saying to what he felt was going to happen, you were like, right. But he sort of kept his promise through. He got Salif Diao, Don Matteo, Lee Hendry, people like that. And he promised more. He said he had Ricardo Fuller, obviously, who I knew from Southampton, Danny, and he wanted to strengthen as well. So I knew a couple of the lads from playing against him, Griff, Eustace, Clint Hill, who were real good lads, good characters, and it just had a real good feel about the place. And going from that first game, you could see why. But personally, it wasn't a great one the next game to come. But they went on an unbelievable run for a couple of months and just missed out on the playoffs. But it was it's hard really to see the vision sometimes, but the way the manager spoke and how passionate he was, and he had a real belief. He thought, there's something going to happen here, and thankfully it did.
I was going to say, you mentioned there you moved quite a few times. If you think about it, Carlisle to Derby to Southampton, up to Sunderland. The loan move came to Stoke, and as you mentioned, the following game was the leg break against Sunderland. So, having suffered a serious injury in the early time with Stoke, how good was Tony Pulis in honouring the signing, really? How did the club look after you?
Yeah, well, we'd agreed verbally that it'd be a permanent move, and in January, this was the October,
Yeah.
Before the transfer window as it is now. You could go on loan, but obviously make it permanent in the January, and there was nothing in writing. And to be honest, when I got to the hospital, the sort of pain had eased off a little bit, so I was coming around to thinking. I was just talking to my missus really, and I was saying, Jesus, I said, I'm going to have to go back to Sunderland. So you need to get my car and stuff and everything back up there. And she was like, yeah, no problem. And then she left, and then the manager, the chairman, and Tony Scholes came into the hospital room and said, listen, there's nothing signed, but we're going to carry on with the permanent. You'll sign permanently in January if it's still good for you. And I just thought, wow, yeah. I'm sat here, my legs in half, and they're committing. It was 18-month deal from there, so there was no definite that I could play again. So for them to do that, at that time was unbelievable. Looking back, really, and something I'll never forget.
Yeah, I think just again slightly going off track, the way that the club look after the players and the people, it's shown during the recent sort of pandemic, the way that they've kept the staff on, and I think again they just epitomise the area really, don't they, of what they want.
Yeah, I think both clubs in the area have been superb in the way they've treated not only their own staff and players, but the supporters as well. There's nothing been hidden. There's nothing. No one's had to wait around and worry about anything. They've come out. I think they've both been foremost in coming out and explaining the position. And listen, the amount of people, certainly the club employs, both Bet365 and as Stoke City. It's hard to comprehend really how much weekly, monthly it's costing. But they came out straight away and said, listen, we're gonna carry on paying everyone. And I'm a believer that things come back on you. And it's so far. I've had a couple of tough years football-wise on the pitch, but I think things like this just create a real feel-good factor about the place, and that positivity, I think, will leak out all over the city, not just the football clubs.
Yeah.
And in these tough times, you need positivity. You'll have done it yourself. You watch these little videos of people, the little surprises, the Tom Moore thing the other day and stuff like that. It just gives you a real good buzz for if it's 5 seconds, 5 minutes, or 5 hours.
Yeah.
But I'm a big believer that your things come back on you, and I hope a lot of good comes back on the area for what the two football clubs have done.
Talking about good things, the following season was possibly one of the greatest in Stoke's history. So just talk to us through that season then. Just how good was that team that got promoted and the environment? And would you say that in a football environment, it's key to have positivity, or, does that make or break a team?
Absolutely, yeah. You've got to have a spirit. People talk about team spirit and people getting on, and again, the manager did his homework on the players he was signing. He asked me. It was probably him and Gordon Strachan that asked me the questions. You kind of sort of takes you back a bit, like, are you married? Have you got kids?
Right.
What does your mum and dad do? Where are they? The little things, and you don't think much of it at the time, but you kind of think, wonder why he's asked that. But there's a reason, and he's thinking, right, if he's married and got kids, he's not going to be out on the piss every night, and he's not going to be doing this, or he's not going to be one. out of 20 lads, you might have one or two that are wrong uns. And I think you need those characters as well. And we had a couple of them. Don't get me wrong, but we had a good group. There was a couple with real talent and a bit of ability. Ricardo obviously stands out in that fact, but we had people like Richard Creswell who sort of went under the radar a little bit, but contributed 15 goals in the season we went up. But it wasn't just his goals; it was his work rate and his character on and off the pitch. He brought us together. Danny Pugh, people like that. There was a real togetherness, and I'm not saying we were every week together or spent every minute, but you knew that if there was a problem or you had an issue or something, you could ring any one of them and they'd have you back.
Yeah.
I think that's the special thing about building that togetherness and a real team. And it's the same now. I could ring any one of them up and say, "Oh, look, really need this," and I know for a fact it'd be done. And they're all the same, you know what I mean? And you bump into each other sometimes. We probably don't keep in touch as much as you'd like, but everyone's busy.
Yeah.
But you bump into Lenny or Eusty or Griff or whatever, and there's no awkwardness at all. It's like, "Oh, yeah, Brayton," and you're straight into like you'd never been apart. And I think that was a real special time. Certainly of my career. Met some good friends in football, but in terms of a group of people together, I've not had anything like that before or since. And it's again, you probably don't realise it at the time. Yeah. Something's going on, something's going right, but you maybe can't quite see why. But looking back, it's pretty easy to see that there wasn't any arseholes, there was no dickheads in the dressing room, and if someone did step out on line, they were slapped back into place by us.
Yeah.
Didn't need the manager to step in. If he had to step in, there was a real problem, and it'd usually end up with that player leaving the club.
Right.
But we tried to stop it getting to that point, and succeeded a lot of the time. So, it was a special time.
Fantastic. I think that was shown obviously in the first season, the togetherness of the group. After being wrote off at the beginning of the season by a certain betting company, obviously to stay up with games in hand must have been quite special. You then went to spend 10 seasons in the Premier League, including obviously the FA Cup run in 2011, the semi-final against Bolton, and then the ensuing Europa League campaign. What would you say your favourite memories are from your time at Stoke?
I think the two that stick out are the promotion, the day against Leicester, and the semi-final. The Bolton semi-final. Those are the two that really stick out. And then you've got the Europa run was brilliant to be a part of. I played in it once. We had a home and away leg for Southampton. When we got to the cup final, but unfortunately I missed that through injury. But we played Steaua Bucharest. But to play, the way they do it with the group games, I thought was really good. We had the qualifiers before it, and then to get through against Valencia, and play them was something again. I'll never forget.
Yeah, fantastic. Just speaking personally as a Stoke fan, I always remember the Leicester game. I think the whole city was partying for a couple of days, and it was just an unreal. I don't think from that season, I mean the season before when you got promoted, I don't think we'd have envisioned enjoying the success and some of the great victories that the club had had. Just coming towards the end of your time at Stoke, short loan spell at Barnsley, and then obviously moved to Burton before retirement in 2013. What would you say, Rory, was the hardest part about coming out of the game, having played for so long?
I didn't find it that hard, mate. My last 6 months before I went to Barnsley, at Stoke, I kept getting little niggly injuries, and then the manager, I was on the bench and I was off the bench. I wasn't near the starting 11 at the time. They'd signed some great players. Zonzi and Charlie had just signed, and they still had Wheelo, Dean Whitehead in my position. So I knew I was not going to get. But you always have those hopes that you can still stay in and hang in there as long as you can. But if I'm honest, I knew, and my body, I was picking up little niggly injuries that I'd never picked up before. Then I had a hernia up just before Christmas, I think it was. And while I was coming back from that, I just thought, I need to get out and play. I went to speak to the manager, and he says, "Look, what are you thinking?" And he says, "Listen, there might be an opportunity to get you coaching or stuff." And I said, "Listen, I'm not ready to finish yet." Yeah. And he's like, "Well, that's fair enough." He says, "Like, well, what about going on loan, seeing how you get on?" And so that's how the Barnsley move came around. And again, it was a challenge because they were in the bottom three. They were in a bit of trouble. But again, speaking to Dave Flitcroft, he had a real belief that they could get out of it. Yeah. So I thought, well, there's no point going and just playing. I'll go and play for something. I'm not naive to think someone near the top is going to take a risk on, 36-year-old. So I went there, and listen, the first was 8 games or whatever. I think we won 7 of them. Went on an unbelievable run, and I was absolutely loving it. Again, a great group of lads, and the manager and the staff there was fantastic, and it was a little bit of a throwback. I don't know. At Barnsley, not everything's done for you. It's sort of, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Sort of coming back. I wouldn't say we were spoiled at Stoke, but there was a lot done for you. Yeah. And it kind of, I wouldn't say got the love of the game back, but sort of reignited that real passion to want to play on. But the end of that loan spell, again, there'd be a calf goal, then a little bit of a hamstring niggle, and another calf, and I ended up not playing another game then till the end of the season. And thankfully Barnsley stayed up on the last day. But in that summer, I just thought, right, well, I'm not ready to finish. I was halfway through my B license, I think, at the time. So, my head was turned towards coaching, but I wasn't ready mentally, I suppose. And then I had a couple of offers, but I wasn't at the stage where I could move my family, and go and take them away from school. And the 2 boys were at Derby in the academy there and really enjoying that. So I kind of, the first selfish really move I made, that I rang a couple of people around the area, and Gary Rowett was the manager of Burton at the time, and said, "Look, do you need an old experienced head?" And he says, "Yeah." He says, "Like, come in." He said, "I don't know where I'm going to play." And I said, "I don't care." I said, "Like, just as long as I'm half a chance of playing." Like, so I went at the pre-season there, loved it. Started the season again, played first 7 or 8 games really well. I think we were in the top 2 or 3. And I thought, oh, here we go. And then again, just calf went, and then my hamstring, then the other calf, then the hamstring, and it was really getting us down, to be honest. And Gaz got us in, and he says, "Look, just take as long as you need to get fit." And I said, "Listen," I said, if it goes again, that's me done. I said, and it was in a reserve game. I remember it. I just overstretched for a ball. My hamstring went, and I just walked off the pitch, went and got in my car, didn't even get changed, and went home. And actually, it was more relief than anything, I suppose. And I don't miss playing at all. There is occasions where you think, oh, I'd love to play today, and you go out at the Brit and you hear the fans singing, and I preferred the little sort of hazy rain days, where there was a bit of wet around, and you think, oh yeah, I'd love this, but my body just couldn't handle it anymore. So it was a little bit of a relief, to be honest, at the time, to finally just go, no, I've had enough.
So you mentioned you were halfway through your B licence at Barnsley. When was it you decided to start coaching?
I started I did my level 2 when I broke my leg.
Right.
When I was coming back from that, so I think I was 30 at the time. I'd always had a bit of an eye on it without thinking I'd go into it, but I don't know anything else, so I knew whatever it was I did was going to have to be football related. And once I'd finished, once I got through and people were talking about what you should do with your B, and anyway, I started my B and kind of thought, yeah, I'm enjoying this. I wasn't doing loads of coaching at the time, but I was doing bits and bobs, really enjoying it. So I thought, yeah, I'll give it a go and see how we get on. And I finished at Burton just before Christmas. Got offers to do media work with Sky and things like that. I did a couple and hated them.
Right.
Absolutely hated them. You know, getting the makeup on and I was travelling down to London for like an hour's show. It took me 3 hours to get down there, 4 hours to get back, and I thought, I'm not seeing as much as my kids now than when I was playing. So I just sat and had a think, and I went to pick the boys up from Derby one day, and Darren Wassell, the academy manager, just said, "Oh, what are you doing with yourself?" And I said, "To be honest, not much. This was just after New Year. Knew in my head that I had to do something to get out of the house." And he says, "Why don't you just come down and have a look and see what you think?" And he says, so I went down and started doing sessions with the under-13s down there. And he said, "Listen, there's a part-time role available with the 13s and 14s if you fancy it." He said, it's up to yourself. And I said, no, I'll take it if that's all right. And went from there, really, and, you know, never looked back.
I mean, was there ever a point, I know it was towards sort of the end of your career you went on the B, but was there ever a point during the coaching courses where you felt it added value to your game as a player and maybe made you see the game a little bit differently?
Yeah, but it was probably a bit too late to have an effect, because I was on the B and I started the B when I was at Stoke.
Yeah.
Didn't really play, and then went to Barnsley. But the way you look at the game, certainly, yeah, absolutely. And again, if I had my time over again, I'd have probably started them earlier. It's tough. It is tough when you're playing to do your badges. I know there's quite a few of the lads at Stoke doing them, and they find it hard to get the hours in. Yeah. You know, because your job is to play football, and you can't put that. You can't put the coaching above your playing. You know, and the first and foremost there to play. So you've got to be very careful. What you don't realise is standing there. I'm sure you'll have had this. You stand there and you might be watching a game or whatever, and then you got to move and your back seized up. You know, you get that thing where you've been stood for a while. And you know, I was speaking to Ryan and I said, "Listen, you need to, when you are doing your coaching, you need to make sure you're on the move." And he was talking about it, and he says, "Yeah, I was doing a session the other day and I went to volley one," and he said, "I thought my back had gone." And I said, "But these are the things you don't realise, you know, because as a player, you never stood still."
Yeah.
You know, and so a coach, even now, I'll just have a little wander around while I'm coaching and try and stay on the move. It's little things like that you don't realise, but in terms of learning the game, certainly you learn and think more about things and opposition and tactics from the coaching side, but it would really help you as a player.
I mean, the reason I asked was I can remember being told on my level 2 that after the course I would never watch the game again as a fan, as I would always be looking at things away from the ball. And I'll certainly agree with that, because, again, being an avid Stoke fan, I then started to analyse the game a bit more and not soak in the atmosphere as such, and, you know, sort of question decisions or why teams played a certain way. But yeah, it's strange because I do miss that fan base sometimes.
Yeah, I find yourself sometimes you focus on one player, You know, from watching a game on the telly, you know, you'll think, oh yeah, the right back or whatever, and then you'll focus on him, but you miss half the game.
Yeah.
You don't know what else is going on. You're focusing on his positioning, and I tend to try and watch. You know, you get the wide view on Sky sometimes, rather than the TV angle in terms of close up. So I end up watching the wide one. You know, people go, "Oh, did you watch the game last night?" Yeah. What about his flick and his goal for that? And I didn't see the goal. I was watching. You know, I can tell you where the right back was when they scored. Like, but yeah. So no, I'd agree with that. It's certainly, you look at the game very differently.
I mean, going back to your sort of coaching path, where you mentioned the 13s and 14s part-time role, you were then appointed under-18s coach. My question was, had you coached in any other age groups? But obviously, you'd built up your experience there through the 13s and 14s.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of Burton with the 15s and 16s, and then when I started at Derby, I went in with the 13s and 14s. Did that for 6 months, and then they had two quite small 16s and 15s groups. So I was asked would it be a joint them with another coach, and join them together as one group. So we ended up doing that for I think it was about 18 months. It was really good. It was a joint sort of 15s, 16s age group, and then you know we'd done well with them, and they were a great bunch of lads, and you know then Darren moved him and Pat Lyons were doing the 18s. They moved up to do the 23s, and asked myself and the coach I was working with, Justin Walker, would we fancy doing the 18s together? And so we'd done 2.5 years really, from 13s up to the 16s, and then was offered the 18s role. So you know, I was delighted to get that, and that was the first sort of full-time role in coaching.
It was only a short one before obviously being promoted to the 21s coach, winning the Premier League 1 Division 2 at the first attempt. How was that then in your first season of the 21s?
Yeah, again, because Darren and Pat were doing the 21s at the time, that they moved up to do the first team, so they asked me to take the 21s, and they were doing really well at the time. I think it was 8 or 9 games left of the season, so you know, there was a bit of pressure on really to keep them up there, and it was good as well, because there was a big squad, first team squad at the time at Derby, so I was getting 3 or 4 first team players dropping down and training, more due to numbers really than anyone being, you know, not the bomb squad or anything, but they always see it like that really, that you know, it's sort of a it's not great to be seen to be training with the 21s, but I learned so much in that period of trying to keep them happy, teach them something, but get the 21s to do what they needed to do as well, to maintain their position, you know, because you talk about development and stuff like that. We were told by the chairman and obviously Darren and Pat that we had to make sure we won the league, under no illusions that was the target. So there was pressure, and it was the first time really I had to win games. Yeah, you know, I'm expected to win games, and there was a couple of first team players coming back from injury, the likes of Will Hughes, Jake Buxton at the time, Lee Grant. We're all coming back from injuries and all dipped in and played a game or two here or there. So it was great having them, you know, to be sort of sat down again. You've done it yourself, where you sat down for a pre-match meeting and you've got to go through the tactics, and you've got, you know, 2 or 3 players that have played 300 or 400 games sat in front of you. Yeah. Puts that extra bit of pressure on, because a young lad will just sit there and go, yeah, whereas they'll go, no, why are we doing that? Yeah. You've got to explain, and if you can explain yourself, you know, there's no problem with it, and they were great. But again, great experience for me.
So the pressure of winning for the 21s followed up not long after, as you followed Gary Rowett to Stoke, part of the coaching staff. Must have been quite nostalgic to return again to another club that you've enjoyed success at.
Yeah, again, I really enjoyed my time at Derby. Again, another club close to my heart. So, it was a tough one, but as soon as really I took over the 18s, I thought, yeah, I'd love a go at first team football. And thankfully Gary gave me the chance to do that. And Derby at the time we obviously lost Gary, and we were looking for a manager and things. And the chairman Mel was brilliant with me at Derby, and said we'd love to keep you in that, but we understand the opportunity. So I managed to go in, and unfortunately, what didn't work out the way we'd liked with Gary, and but I think the chance for me to go and work with the senior team was too big one to turn down, and especially being Stoke, which I had but the one thing that stuck in my head was that people, I didn't want to go back as an ex-player. I wanted to go as a coach who's got an opportunity. You know what I mean? And, it's completely different. There's been a lot of players that have been great players, far better than me, and not managed to be able to make it at coaching. So, first and foremost, I had to be confident myself. I could go and add value to Gaz's team and to the senior squad. So, that was a big one to think about, but I was confident I could do it, and it's probably for other people to say whether I have or not.
We mentioned earlier about the academy sort of set up, or the centre of excellence at Carlisle, and how things changed as you went to different clubs. Your lad has recently come through the academy system. How has it changed from when you came through then? What would you say it's better, or would you say, as you mentioned before, like at Stoke, they get too much? Where would you say it's changed for the good?
It's tough. It's tough because tactically and technically, they're far more ahead of where we were at that age, 14, 15, 16. If someone had spoken to me at 15, 16 about a mid-block or a high presser, I wouldn't know what they're going on about. Yeah. It was basically get the ball, do something with it. If you lose it, get it back. And that was basically a simple. We didn't have training sessions as such. I can rarely remember being given any tactical information from managers, apart from the left back's decent, you're playing against today, and that was it. There was very little in terms of that. When I started the 18s, you did start to do a lot more tactical and technical drills and sessions, but I don't know if it's overkill, to be honest. Now sometimes I'll watch an under 10 game or an under 12s game, and the lads are playing. You can see they love playing and enjoy it, but then they'll go off. If they're playing quarters, they'll go off after the quarter, and the coach will stand there for 10 minutes with a tactics board, and you're kind of going, "No, I'm not sure about that."
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? I'm more one where I'm sure you get enough time with them on a training week to get that information into them, and my feelings is that the younger players coming through now need to be told what to do rather than work it out for themselves.
Yeah,
I think that comes from a young age, that they've been told all the way through what they need to do and how they need to do it, rather than work it out for themselves. A little bit of trial and error, really, and I would say that's probably the biggest part of it now, in terms of we used to be able to work a lot out ourselves quicker than the young lads can now.
Yeah.
And how to deal with situations that maybe not as streetwise nowadays than we were, in terms of the little hints and traits of a player. You'd work out very quickly that a centre forward likes to open up on his right and take it rather than cut across with his left. I think it takes them, and you have to show them on a video. You have to let them see it 2 or 3 times before they work it out, and then they will go, "Oh yeah, I see it now." Whereas we were given 2 or 3 opportunities in a game where we go, right, I know what he's going to do now, and kind of work it out that way. So
More of it.
I'll probably say that technology is probably a big one to blame, that you can look back on it so many times. I bet we made millions of mistakes when we were coming through, but we didn't sit in front of a video screen and watch it 5 times and then look at it in a team meeting and watch. Do you know what I mean? Watch it back again. You know, it was kind of gone, so you'd have to bank it up there rather than go, oh well, it's on Huddle or it's on another format. It's there. You've got to log it mentally.
I mean, it sort of goes back to what you said. Was it John Holiday at Carlisle, where you had to learn just to survive? Do you think we're enabling enough sort of guided discovery for the players now in the academy system?
No, I don't think, and I don't blame the coaches either. I think the clubs should put more of an emphasis on just playing, and work it out for yourself. And the coach be there more for guidance and coaching, which, you know, might seem. I think the younger you coach, the more skilled coach you've got to be. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think the younger coaches have got far more skill in coaching than probably a lot of the people that coach older age groups or senior teams. Mm-hmm. But the information they're giving is probably too much at times. I'd say that they're always giving them the answer rather than. This is general. This is not saying all, but a lot of what I've seen, the coach gives the player the answer rather than the player work the answer out for themselves.
Yeah, and almost becoming a bit robotic. Would you say?
Absolutely. It's every course I go on. A lot of the first team senior players you speak to, coaches obviously that I've worked with, that's a word that keeps coming up. They're very robotic.
Yeah.
The young players come through it. And again, talking about first touch, or if you say to them, we're playing a 3-5-2, you're playing a 4-4-2, where's the strengths and weaknesses, they'll go like that, bang. But if you say, well, what if you play against Messi and you've got him in the bag and then they bring Ibrahimovic on, what are you going to do? They ain't got a clue.
Yeah.
So robotic in terms of they've got the structured, real structure about the way they go about. And sort of looking at my career, I think the most structured that we were ever was probably with Tony Pulis, because we were told what we had to do, and in known circumstances, if we didn't do that, we wouldn't play. And he says, if you give me any more on top of that, brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's a must. So as a midfielder, you've got to sit and protect your 2 centre-backs. Shouldn't be a ball into a front man's feet. Mm-hmm. If it's going for the header, you were told to do certain things. If it's a goal kick, you've got to screen your centre-half. If you don't hear a shout, you go and win the header. If you hear a shout, you protect and get around for the knockdowns and little things like that. You work, but there was also that anything else on top of that, brilliant. Yeah. But you do that, so there was a structure there. Whereas now, I think you speak to a winger and you say, right, you've got to take him on the outside 10 times, or you've got to cross it with your left foot. All he's going to do and try is go down the outside and cross it with his left foot. Mm-hmm. Whereas you're not going, listen, put six crosses in this half if you can. Whichever way you do that, right, left-footed, going down the outside, cutting back, whipping it in or wherever, I think, they've got to work it out. They've got to work it out. But if you could put 6 crosses in a half, that's 12 a game. If your mate's doing that, that's 24. If the full-backs is chipping in a few, that's 30 crosses a game. Yeah. Now it's a centre-forward's chance. If 15 of them are decent crosses and miss the first man, the centre-forward's got 15 opportunities to score a goal. So now you go, right, how are you going to score a goal, mate? Do you know what I mean? And it probably sounds simple, but I think working it out for themselves, it's becoming more difficult for the young players.
I was just going off track again. I was fortunate enough to ask Tony Pulis a question at an event probably about 6-7 years ago. And I sort of asked him, you're known for playing a certain style of football. What advice would you give to coaches? At the time, I was a level 2 coach, coaching in the female game. And he said, with what you've got. And if I'm honest, I thought it was a bit of a cop-out. But then he elaborated and said, what's your style? So I explained I wanted both fullbacks bombing on. And he went, well, can both your fullbacks get up and down for 90 minutes? And I was like, no. He said, well, that's not your style. And it lit a really massive light bulb in my coaching moment and went, it's not about me as a coach at times. It's about the players that you've got and how can you make them play to their strengths for the greater team. And, look, without sounding a bit arrogant, we tweaked it and we were a lot more successful, conceded a lot less goals. And, it's just real that snippet of sort of gold dust that was like, it was like I say,
everyone knows how Pep Guardiola likes to play. But if he had the old Wimbledon team, is he going to play like that? No. And if he does, what's going to happen? He's going to be bottom of the league.
Yeah.
Like I was watching that SAS thing last night with John Fashanu, and you're going, if you're asking him to drop in and get hold of the ball and set and turn, and you've no chance. But you pump it up to him and put crosses in the box, he's effective.
Yeah.
So you're going back to your, listen, what are they good at? Right.
Players.
Yeah. Knowing your players, but yeah, he certainly did that.
I mean, just a bit of conscious, I've taken up a lot of your time. Coming through, obviously, the career you've had and now the career you're moving through in the coaching world, what advice would you give to any young coaches wanting a career in the game?
I think have your own style. Every course I've been on, going about, what's your philosophy? And you're going, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Don't know. Do you know what I mean? I think people are sometimes scared to say, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I think you only work out your philosophy, as you say, when you manage to get a team and you go, as you say there, you play the Liverpool way. Well, I've got 2 fullbacks that can make one run and need a 5-minute break. You're not going to play the Liverpool way. Yeah. So I think believing in what you believe in and having a real structure of the way you like to work. But if the players aren't buying into that, how are they going to improve, or how are you going to have success? It's not going to happen. So I think you've got to be adaptable for me, in terms of you've got to see what you've got to work with before you can actually start putting things into practice and structures together. We all have a way we'd like our teams to play, but unless you are Pep Guardiola and you've got 500 million to spend, it's going to be very difficult to play the exact way you want to. You can baby step it there, but I think being adaptable is probably the biggest thing for me, and not being afraid to say I don't know. Yeah. I think all the courses I've been on, people speak and you go, wow, yeah, he knows his stuff and that, and then, oh God, he knows his stuff, but I'm sat there thinking, I don't know what they're going on about.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I'm never going to learn unless I say, I don't understand. So having a bit of a conscience really to go, not be bothered and saying, I don't know, I don't understand.
Yeah.
But being adaptable for me has probably been the biggest thing, especially the age groups I've worked with. You could have the same session for under 13 as you do with the senior team, but you've got to adapt it.
It's got to be relevant to your players.
Yeah.
One of the best bits of advice I was given through the mentoring scheme, and my mentor was, when asked what your philosophy is, he just said, depends, and shrugged his shoulders. And again, I was a bit miffed because I thought it's a cop-out, but he then alluded and said, it depends, And if you can answer why it depends, then you've got your answer on how you play. And that's maybe it's a bit of a cop-out from me, but when it comes to playing or coaching now, it does depend. It depends on the quality of the players. It depends on the number of the players. It depends on the opposition and so many things. But if you can answer those questions, I think you start to fine-tune where you're going as a coach, I believe.
I think, because when I went into a derby, I said to Darren, I said, like, well, what way do you want the team to play, and you know what formations and stuff like that? And he goes, not bothered. He says there's the pillars, so he says you better work hard, have a good character, be honest and trustworthy. And he said, but if you come in with a player who's 6'7" and playing midfield and you've got feet like a camel, it ain't going to work.
Yeah,
ain't going to work. So, again, if you're trying to turn, you can sprinkle. Was it Danny Higginbottom used to say you can sprinkle glitter on dog shit, but it's still dog shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
You can polish a turd, but it's
yeah.
Turd, yeah. I mean, just to sort of finish off the chat, really, just a few quick fire questions. First question, what would you prefer? Last minute winner to get promoted or a last minute winner to escape relegation?
Promotion.
Okay. Best friend in football?
Be hard to pick one out. Obviously, Ryan's up there. Higgy, Neil McCann, Matt Oakley, Lee Grant. There's a few, to be fair, I keep regularly in touch with. So,
toughest opponent?
Roy Keane. Okay.
Best trainer?
Tough one. Probably Houthi.
Okay.
Yeah, trained like he played, and most of us ended up injured. So,
worst dressed teammate?
He'd be close as well for that one, but Andy Griffin was horrific. Yeah, dressed like an old man.
Yeah. Worst taste in music?
Yeah, it'd be tough on that. Mm.
I thought Rick got a mention.
Probably Ricardo, yeah.
He had to get in there somewhere, didn't
he? Yeah.
Best player you've played with?
Be Roy Keane.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just finally for us, is there anyone you would recommend to come on the podcast?
Stoke based. You mean
Stoke based, but it's got
Stoke Connection. Sorry, Stoke Connection.
Anyone you'd like us to
get Higgy on.
Get Higgy on.
Yeah.
I will do my best to drop him a message and try and get him on. He's
got no else to do, has he? So he's he's doing every interview at the moment, I think. So
I'll drop him a tweet, see if he's up for it. I'll say you've recommended him.
Yeah, no worries.
Rory, listen, I just want to say thank you again for taking time out of your schedule. I know you, as you mentioned, you've been busy looking after first team affairs and obviously joining us today. It's been a pleasure to chat. Wish you all the success for the future and hope you and your family stay safe.
Top man, you too.
Cheers, Rory.
Cheers, Matt.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the content within our podcast. Don't forget, new episodes will be released monthly, but if you can't wait for them, you can find us over on YouTube at PCT Football Coaching.